Hello and welcome to another episode of the Best You interview series. It's Gary here again, and thank you as always for taking the time to tune in today. And today I'm joined by international executive business coach and growth advisor Herb Cogliano, who is here to discuss his journey in business that has inspired him to help others in their own businesses. Leveraging the Scaling Up performance platform from Verne Harnish's award-winning book Scaling Up, this has allowed Herb to help numerous companies achieve remarkable growth and success. Bringing a unique blend of real-world experience and academic expertise provides Herb with a deep understanding of the challenges businesses face and the strategies needed to overcome them. Herb's experience spans key areas crucial to business growth, including attracting and retaining the right talent, developing and executing winning strategies, ensuring flawless execution, and maintaining healthy cash flow. Herb is passionate about working with leaders who are committed to growth and open to doing things differently, and his coaching style focuses on creating a culture of accountability, strategic discipline, and innovative thinking. Quite the bio there, Herb. Thank you very, very much for joining me on the show today.
Well, it is a pleasure to be here and be with the Best You podcast audience, and I look forward to a great conversation.
Me too. Me too. So, can you tell us a little bit about your background that got you to the spot that you're at right now? And I know there's a heavy business component background, and I'd love the listeners to hear about that.
Yeah, I'm one of the fortunate children that grew up in a family business, and my father was very entrepreneurial, and we always talked about opportunities for people. And my father was in the jobs business, so getting people employment was really important to my family
Right.
because we knew the impact that it had on the community and on the family members themselves when their mother, father was meaningfully employed.
Yeah.
So it just really had a deep connection for me since I was a young child. And so I grew up in the business, then ultimately started some additional businesses in adult education, had an amazing scale up journey, and now have my third business, which is this coaching practice, bringing scaling up practices to other companies across the world.
Nice. Excellent. And in terms of the family business, you said you were fortunate enough to grow up in that. Did you mean genuinely you were fortunate in that? Because I've come across people in my past who have had less than an enjoyable experience within a family business in terms of the choices and opportunities that were open to them, the growth that they did or didn't experience as a result of being in the family business. What was your experience of that?
Um, I think any family, and our business was around for 54 years, over 5 decades, which for a family business is a long time.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And we had our challenges like any other family business, but at the end of the day, we knew if the business was healthy, then the family could be healthy.
Yeah.
So we would try as best we could to put aside individual differences and really focus on what was best for the company and what was ultimately best for everybody in the family. My father had a very open coaching style as a leader himself.
Yeah.
So he was willing to teach us, patient when we made mistakes. And I think that allowed us to develop. And I've heard, and I work with family companies as well, and I've heard stories where, like you said, it wasn't the same.
Yeah.
So I feel grateful, even though there was trials and tribulations. I think at the end of the day, I had a great opportunity, but I knew it and I worked very hard with it to get to where we are today.
Fantastic. Incredible. I had a conversation with my son just last night, literally just last night, saying he's at the spot where he's coming up for 16. He can get like a proper job when he's 16, so he's a bit in between right now. And And I said, why don't you come and work for me? And work with me and help me with certain things that you can do that you can help me with. And I got this this kind of deer in the headlights look, where he was kind of thinking, are you serious? I don't know if that sounds awful or fantastic. I'm not 100% sure. So more to come on that. You never know, it might end up being a family business in and of itself too. Anyway, so you utilize, I mentioned in your bio there, you utilize the scaling up performance platform from Verne Harnish. Can you share a bit more about the four decisions framework and how business owners can effectively implement it to scale for their operations?
Yeah, so during the company's journey, we had hit kind of a ceiling. We were doing good, we'd have a good year, maybe a second, but then we'd go back.
Right,
And maybe we couldn't put 2, 3, 4, 5 great years in a row.
right.
And that was frustrating because
Mhm.
we had really good people, hardworking people, but something was missing. There was a ceiling of complexity with the next level where we'd never been,
Yeah,
of size, number of employees, locations that eluded us in the leadership team. So early 2003, somebody gave me a copy of the Scaling Up book, which at the time was the Rockefeller Habits.
right.
10 simple rituals that J.D. Rockefeller used to scale up Standard Oil, which is now, I think, ExxonMobil, to great heights back in the day. And I read it, and keeping it simple, I took accounting, I took marketing, I took operations, but nobody had a playbook in school for scaling up your whole company. I just took subjects.
Yeah,
Well, this was the playbook in one book on how to navigate the different levels and complexity of a company's growth. And once we got the playbook and started to implement and adapt and master, beautiful things happened. And the four decisions are the type of decisions you need to make right as you're navigating the next level growth. First one is around people.
mhm,
When you have a lot of drama in your company, whether it's employee drama, client drama, supplier drama, maybe a fellow partner shareholder drama,
yeah,
you have to make better people decisions or you get stuck.
yeah,
And we have a series of tools which we use that help the leadership team navigate and how to make a better decision to get through that to the next stage. If your revenues start to stall, your margins are maybe being pressured by competitors, commoditization sets in,
mhm,
you need a pivot. And strategy is the second decision area. And we have tools to help our clients see where the pivots are and how to identify the next place for top line growth and gross margin growth, which are very important.
yeah.
Have you ever seen an owner that works 7 days a week, 60 plus hours a week, feels burnt out, but makes very little money at the end of the day?
Yeah.
That's execution decisions. And we need to make better execution decisions because you can have a great top line revenue, but if your bottom line doesn't grow, you're working really hard for nothing.
Yeah.
So we help an owner identify where is the execution gone wrong and how do we synchronize top line growth with bottom line growth so you get both.
Yeah.
And then the final decision is around cash. Have you ever heard of people growing broke? All your money gets reinvested back into the company. You're growing, so you just keep hiring more people, buying more equipment, and then you look at your bank account and you have no money left
Mm.
because growth sucks cash.
Yeah.
So we have to understand how to make better cash decisions so that we can internally fund, whenever possible, growth, or only borrow at the right time at the right amount to support our growth. So, those four types of decisions with the right toolbox on how to solve them really allowed us to take that growth playbook and implement in a way where things got easier, drama got less, results became more consistent,
Mm.
and what felt like a horror story for a while when you were going through the challenge turned back into a love story where the owners fall back in love with the business they originally loved when they founded.
Yeah.
And that to me is the best part of the story. More fun, more freedom to work on your company versus in it,
Yeah.
and a lot less drama for all the people involved. And
Yeah.
that's normally a good story.
Definitely. Absolutely. I love that framework. I was just capturing some notes as you were chatting there. And in terms of your experience and what you had learned at university, you had learned kind of disciplines without the ability to be able to bring it together and understand how that helps. Do you see that manifesting itself into the business world today? Is that the type and style of clients experience that you have today?
Well, if you think about it, the majority of the people that come out of school are very specialized. I went to school for marketing, I went to school for finance. A lot of people don't come out of school with general management.
Yeah.
And even if they do have general management, what is it? I took an operations course, an accounting course, a marketing course, and a sales course, but they're never really integrated. And I
Mm.
think that's the key.
Yeah.
The playbook integrates the pieces. And the thing about scaling your company, Gary, as you see as you grow your business as well, year one, your biggest challenge could be strategy.
Mm.
Does anybody want my product? Is
Yeah.
anybody going to buy my product
Yeah.
and at the right price? But year two, when you really find the right product and people want it, your next problem may be, excuse me, your next problem may be people. You don't have enough staff to
Yeah.
service the needs that you have. And then you're dealing with turnover and client delivery issues because clients keep dealing with a new employee every other week.
Yeah.
So the ability to know it and evolve as your problems evolve, the complexity evolves, is not an easy thing for a lot of owners to understand
Yeah.
because they look at it one way and they're afraid to touch anything because sales are so good. I don't want to mess with it.
Yeah.
But you and I know the market will ultimately change your plans whether you like it or not. So, teaching our people, not only educating them on the playbook, but implementing and mastering the playbook tools allows you to use them in a variety of market situations, which if you're going to be in your company 3, 5, 10, 20 years, you'll need to be adaptive
Yeah.
and use them in different ways in order to be successful.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I think that kind of glue that binds all of the disciplines and all of the education and smarts and experience that you've had to date is it certainly seems like a gap there, and it sounds like that's what you've been experiencing. So one of the key themes that came out there in terms of the type and style of people that you would have in your organization. Obviously, that's the first major pillar of the decision making. Then creating within those decisions, the ability for them to be accountable and perform at a high level. It sounds like that's obviously crucial for sustained business success. What are some strategies or practices that you found most effective in cultivating such an environment?
Yeah. Um, in the beginning, Gary, the biggest challenge I see is that you start your company you're very good at something when you begin,
Yeah.
and then you hire people that you can delegate other activities that you're not good at.
Yeah.
So these people you hire are good people, they're hardworking people, but they're very used to being delegated to versus leading, because
Mm.
you're leading and they're doing.
Yeah.
Now double your company. You need some of these people who can now lead. And you say, well, Joe, you've been with me the longest. I'm going to give you the promotion. You're a good worker. You're smart. But Joe doesn't know how to lead. He knows how to do.
Mm.
So now you get frustrated. Joe gets frustrated. And you're back where you started from.
Yeah.
So understanding that in the beginning, you're going to delegate most of the things you're bad at. And you're going to keep what you're good at. And when you get bigger, you need to be comfortable with delegating what you're good at and hiring leaders and coaching and developing leaders versus just doers.
Yeah.
And that's a mindset pivot for the owner, because in a startup or a smaller boutique firm, they've never had to do that before,
Yeah.
but they've always been successful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so some owners make the pivot and some owners get stuck and they keep doing it the same way they've always been doing it. And what happens is they become a nice lifestyle company.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's trying to anticipate that growth and what's required today versus tomorrow and navigating the winds of change as you go forward. I can see that being a gap because if you don't have enough intention at the beginning, you're not really too sure what your scaling plans or opportunities are going to be and how you're even going to act or react in those circumstances when it occurs. It's almost like you're kind of just consistently chasing your tail to a point of default or fault even in and of itself, where as you said earlier, customers start to get annoyed, there's too much churn, people don't understand their roles, they've not been supported properly, the fun has gone out of it. We're becoming, it's not a startup mentality anymore, it's starting to feel like a grown-up business, and maybe some people aren't jived by that.
Right. I
Yeah.
think that was my biggest pivot, Gary. When your name is on the door
Yeah.
and you're used to being the person who brings in all the business, that's where you get your satisfaction, your gratification from.
Yeah.
But now somebody says, well, wait a minute, you have to hire a sales leader. They need to hire a sales team. And together, they need to bring in the business, and you need to be doing other stuff:
Yeah.
acquisition, new locations, new product launch, whatever. And yet, I wasn't used to doing any of that. I was used to selling big accounts and being the brand. And that was a major pivot, because how many other big leaders before had I ever developed?
Yeah.
None.
Yeah.
And so I had to first of all be aware of it. And then when I became aware, now what is my development path to be a good person who develops future leaders in the company? And
Yeah.
it ended up being a major portion of my job. Probably the last 15 plus years of my career was all leadership development,
Mm.
identifying them, coaching them up, promoting them up, and developing people who could ultimately run companies or large divisions within our company. But boy, that was so gratifying when you saw that work.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it was a long road, trust me. A
Well,
lot of
bet.
trials.
Yeah. And that, one of the things when you were just chatting there, Herb, was I was starting to think along the lines of parenting, and how your role as a parent evolves from the very moment of birth to, you know, having whatever your adult type and style of relationship is with your children or kids, depending on how many you have. going forward, that there are certain things you are needed for, absolutely needed for, literal life or death, capabilities or capacity in that. And then there's a little bit more independence on certain things as they grow. And then there's more and more. And then you as the family CEO, your role evolves and changes over time as their interest, their influences, their impact out into the world looks. And I wonder, I'm thinking, selfishly, personally, in terms of my own business and where I'm at right now, of trying to project into the future to say there are certain things that I've enjoyed absolutely every single part of my parenting journey. My son is an absolute delight, you know, but there's certain, I think probably the most angst I've had over time is you don't need me to read to you anymore. No, I can read on my own, but
Mm.
I read to you each night. That's our thing, but I don't need you to do that anymore. Should I just sit here while you read? No, that's weird. Like, why don't you leave the room,
Mm.
and then it's all those, I'm becoming less required and such. So just having that, I say that out loud, Herb, just to maybe hopefully resonate with some of the audience to say, if you're thinking in terms of nothing stays the same, you're hoping that you're anticipating and building towards the fact that this is going to be a success. How do you lean into that success as you go forward? What does your role look like? How can you get out of your own and the company's way at the most strategically appropriate time? And that probably brings, it's a good segue into what I was going to ask next. You're a growth advisor. Obviously, you do your academic work too, and in terms of leadership development. Like, can you discuss a wee bit more of the role of the CEO throughout the scaling up, and any specific traits or skills that are essential for, if I could say, effective leadership during the growth phase?
Sure. Um, I look for five main traits for a successful scaling up CEO and a really successful scaling up leader. Could be a functional leader, business unit leader,
Yeah,
but number one, they're very growth oriented,
yeah,
either with their personal development, their team's development. They don't look at education as an expense, they view it as an investment and they make it gladly.
yeah,
They're not afraid to put in the time, the hard work it takes to constantly be reinventing themselves as markets and business changes. And they're growth oriented for the company and the scale and the size.
yeah.
So these people traditionally look at doubling their companies every 3 to 5 years.
Right.
They're just not satisfied. And what we learned is if you hire a group of fellow A players to work in your company, you're really building bigger futures for all of you. And when your company doesn't grow sufficiently, A players need to make a decision.
Yeah,
I'll either spend my career at your company or I'll find a company that can grow with me.
yeah.
Because A players will keep growing. Number two, they are coachable.
Mm,
They're open minded, they're
yes.
self aware,
Yeah,
they don't believe everything they think is always right or perfect. And even though they may be smart, they are willing to listen to the perspective of other people and other views before making any real important decisions. They do a lot of information gathering before making big decisions. They're not emotional, they're not rash.
mm,
They're good critical thinkers,
yeah,
and they believe that they have as much to learn as anybody else on their team.
yeah.
So that coachability mindset is really important in scaling.
Mm,
The third one is strategic thinkers. There are some heads of companies that are very good with tactics, like they've been selling their whole life and they know how to qualify a prospect, they know how to close big deals, big money.
yeah,
but they're not really thoughtfully looking at market trends, company 12-month trailing data on their operational metrics, and then looking where the two intersect and what's the implication for our strategy because of it.
Yeah.
And there's a balance between strategic thinking and execution, and the right CEOs have that balance figured out.
Yeah.
So critical strategic thinking is very important in their toolbox. The next thing is that they are accountable executors.
Right.
They do monitor results. They aren't afraid to top grade non-A players and put A players whenever possible in every seat throughout their entire company.
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest challenges I face with supporting CEO development is that they develop friendships with their employees,
Yeah.
long-standing employees who are no longer A players in their role because the role has changed and evolved over time,
Yeah.
and yet they refuse to do anything about it. And that hurts the company overall because A players like to work with fellow A players, not fellow C players.
Yeah.
So that ability to hold people accountable, the ability to take a C player and coach up. How do I make a B player with good intention a consistent A player?
Yeah.
And that ability is important. The final thing, you have to be an effective communicator, Gary. If
Yes.
you think about good leaders, we repeat, we repeat, we repeat. I'm repeating the top priorities. I'm repeating our core values. I'm repeating our core purpose. I'm repeating our big, hairy, audacious 10-year goal as a company that we're going to hit. Almost like a parent, have you ever heard your son say, "Dad, I'm sick of you saying this," because you say the same thing over and over?
100%. Yes.
But a great leader knows the few things that need to be said over and over until it becomes top of mind, like your values, like your purpose,
Yeah.
like your top priorities for every employee in the company.
Yeah.
And that takes effective communication to do that. So those are the 5 things that I really look for in screening in high potential scaling up CEOs.
Yeah, I love that. I love that list. Again, I was taking some notes there, and just everything. It sounds so obvious. You know, the list sounds like, yeah, I can understand. Of course, that's what you would need as a CEO or as a leader of any type and style of organization, regardless of your title. But when you put it together in a package, when you put it together in a package with a company that is moving and growing and adapting and changing, and the ability to be able to effectively grow with that company, do what needs to be done strategically with the company, have that mindset of I don't have it all figured out. I need some help. I need some support. I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to continue to lead as a result of that, underpinned by active, effective, understandable, consumable communication. It's while like literally academically, as you and I say this stuff out loud today, it sounds like, yeah, I can appreciate that. I imagine it's probably it's not so easy in terms of execution, in terms of implementation, in terms of consistency and putting it all together. Would you say that's the case for many or most?
Yeah, I think it is because we haven't internalized. Think of a production environment. Production environments have schedules,
Yeah.
and they try and batch like-minded um, customer orders whenever they can. So when we schedule things right and we batch process correctly and we have the right inventory on hand and the right labor scheduling combined, we have the ultimate production output.
Yeah.
Well, think of an executive communicating. Is his schedule scattered, or does he have productive meetings scheduled with the highest impact activities at the right time each and every week? Or is he putting out fires, random conversations, ad hoc output, inconsistent results? And yet we talk about a lot of things, but nothing gets done. And people are confused because
Yeah.
they don't know what the main thing is.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. So, three things for great execution, Gary, for all your listeners. Number one, have a few very important priorities that, if you do them, will make the single biggest difference for your company this quarter.
Yeah.
Number two, are you getting data about the KPI metric that would measure the successful outcome of that one priority or two? And that data, when monitored at least on a weekly basis, if not daily, tells you if you're going off track. And the third piece is meeting rhythms that you come together with the data about the few important priorities, and you can update, communicate, collaborate, and problem solve around them when they're not on track. When
Yes.
I see leadership teams do those three simple things, not two, all three, we have great outcomes mostly every quarter.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that. How often do you see that performed prior to you getting involved and helping them, with coaching and scaling up and such? Is that how common would you suggest that is based on your clients thus far?
Um, I think having several is common, but very few do I see have all three
Right,
going at the same time.
right. Yeah. Yeah, one of the key themes that was coming through on all of the information that you've shared today, Herb, has been intention. If you have
Yes.
intention, of course, intention on the right things at the right time, with a solid strategy to back up that intention. But you know, a lot of times in any facet of life that I get intimately involved in, if there's something that's going to go amiss, it's not it's not aspiration, it's not desire, it's not, anything like literal in terms of process or system or customer requirement. It all kind of really resonates a foundation. It goes back to the foundation of intention. You can have the best of anything that you want, but if you don't intentionally see it through, intentionally continue to behave and deliver the way that you've said you're going to, intentionally look around the corners, intentionally act and react to circumstances that are becoming, prevalent or emerging in a certain circumstance or not, then you're kind of playing with one eye closed kind of thing. You're in some way, putting yourself at a disadvantage if you don't have that genuine overarching intention to play the game that you're in. I love that. So today, in today's fast-paced environment, you mentioned earlier about the business owner working 7 days a week and 60 hours a week and such, and then not really getting the type and style of impact and return that they are looking for. So, trying to make sure your business is as set up and operational as it needs to be, that would be scalable to give you the growth that you need, but also to give yourself, because I'm assuming, I'll just make a big assumption here, folks, that people don't get into business to work 100 hours a week, to never see their family, to never get to do things, to never get to go places, to never get to create impact or any social contribution or whatever it is that's driving them. So, what advice do you have for leaders that are striving to achieve a balance between the growth of a sustainable, effective business and their own life?
Yeah. Number one, like for your business, what is the ultimate objective? When you founded your business, what did you want to do?
Yeah.
Maybe you wanted to cure cancer. Maybe you wanted to make sure everybody had insurance in case you ever lost a loved one. Your
Mm.
family wouldn't be devastated. Whatever that reason is, should be clear and compelling.
Yeah.
And then I ask, what is your personal reason for outside of work?
Mm.
What do you want to achieve as a father, a husband? And so we have a one-page strategic plan for the positive vision for your business, and we have a one-page personal plan for you as an individual.
Yeah.
And we try and integrate them together so we can have work-life balance.
Yeah.
And I think from the work side, most of the owners that are working so many hours are trying to do, in my mind, too many things.
Right.
They're in charge of sales, marketing, IT, HR, and they just seem to need to focus on what is the next seat on the bus that will allow me to get somebody else doing the type of work that's making me work 100 hours a week, doing 3 or 4 functions at the same time.
Yeah.
Now, an owner could say to me, well, Herb, we're only $1 million company. I can't have a CFO and a chief marketing officer and a VP of sales. And I say, you're right. But you know what you could do? You could get fractional people,
Yeah.
one at a time, over time, until you build out a leadership team that will ultimately allow you to spend 80% of your time working on the company and 20% working in.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
the people that see that with me and buy in that it's going to be a slow, progressive journey to fractionally get these people and then ultimately full-time the people in the different leadership roles, that is their pathway to entrepreneurial freedom.
Yes. Yeah. I love that. And I do see more and more, even just on social media, LinkedIn, for example, I see more and more people, advertising themselves as fractional CFOs, CMOs, whatever that looks like, so it's becoming more commonplace than it was maybe say 10 years ago in terms of just the notion of saying, I don't need a full one, I just need 10% of one. Where would I go and find one from there? And another thing that really resonated for me in terms of what you were just mentioning was patience, like the understanding that you don't go from 0 to 100 in the space of 2 seconds. You have to build up, and obviously that's a key core component part of the playbook of the scaling up model as well, is to do the right thing at the right time, to give yourself a nudge and a push when you need that nudge and push, and then convalesce when you need to convalesce, and then continue to grow from there. Do you ever experience any challenges in terms of people's lack of patience, where they think they signed up for something else and you're saying, look, I'm going to give you a dose of reality and everything that we're doing here in this playbook, and if you want this to work, these are the steps you follow? Do you ever experience patience challenges?
To be very upfront, Gary, I think we do such a good job of telling people this is minimally a 12 to 36 month adoption and immersion to
Yeah.
see the type of things we're talking about.
Yeah.
And I've personally lived that in my own companies, if not longer.
Yeah.
It felt longer at the time. But I think when I really got patience, and I'm going to put 2 and 2 together. Number 1, it's my patience. But number 2, you know where I had to learn the most patience? Developing the people in my company.
Right.
Like if I'm not used to, I'm like, I want to read something, or I want to visit a client, close a deal, I want to learn something, a skill. I'll go to the class and I've learned it and I'm using it.
Yeah.
But you have 1,000 employees working for you. They don't all they don't all develop that way.
Yes.
So that patience and one other connection to what you said, which I love, Gary. I think I became a better leader when I started being a coach of my children's sports team
Right.
because I couldn't believe the patience I had to have for teaching 5-year-old soccer. And it was like herding cats, watching them run around.
Yeah.
And so that to me was like, oh, I get it. It's not going to be, they're not going to be scoring a hat trick in their first season at 5 years old. They could barely touch the ball.
Yeah.
And those were gifts for me, I think. I think it accelerated my development because I finally saw it when I couldn't see it any time before.
Yeah. And being open to that learning too. I know for a fact that not everyone is, not that they're not open to learning, but they're not being genuinely open and intentional every day to what can I learn from this circumstance or situation? What can I give to it? What can I get from it? And, some people would just be, I'm coaching my kids' football, soccer game. And if I can survive the next 90 minutes, then I'll be a better human being. And then I can go home and just get on with the rest of my life. Whereas it sounds like you started to really see and feel the analogies between that and business life. And then you got an
Oh,
opportunity to use those as growth prompts to take forward. I love that. I absolutely love that. So as we wrap up today, this has been fantastic. I could genuinely talk about this for hours and hours and hours, and we've only scratched the surface of the model, but you certainly shared a lot of really good things. Where can people find out a little bit more about you and a little bit more about your business, Herb?
yeah. So my website is Aspire Growth Advisors with an S.com.
Mhm.
For the listeners that want to discover where your company's current scaling up readiness is, I have a complimentary diagnostic assessment, fairly short, but that will help you. Is people, strategy, execution, or cash my biggest gap? Where do I begin? And for those of you that want to kind of assess your current leadership, I have a high impact leadership assessment that will tell you how you rate against the 5 traits that you and I talked about earlier in the podcast.
Yeah.
So feel free to take advantage of those and happy scaling to all of your listeners out there.
I love it. Thanks again, Herb. This has been an absolute delight today. Hello again. Thanks again for tuning in to this episode, and I do hope that you found it valuable and gained some insights. I do have an ask for you. If you enjoyed this podcast, I would absolutely love it if you would connect with me on my socials, and that's at LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Just search for my name and do whatever it is you need to do there to follow me and stay updated with all the latest content, tips, and discussions. And for any more resources that you're looking for, feel free to visit my website, garygillen.com. And while you're there, you can book a free, no obligation 30-minute coaching call directly with me through the site. Whether you're looking to enhance your performance or tackle a new challenge, I'm absolutely here to help you succeed, and I would absolutely love to hear from you. Thanks very much again, and until next time, keep pushing towards your goals and getting better each and every day, my friend.